Imagine waking up to the sharp stink of animal waste smeared across your car's windshield, not once, but for the fourth time in just a few weeks, and realizing it's not some random act of vandalism, but a deliberate strike from the very person who's supposed to keep the peace in your neighborhood, the one who thinks she runs the whole show. It was barely dawn in Tucson, Arizona. The kind of early morning where the desert air still clings to the coolness of night. And there I was, Alex Rivera, standing in my driveway in nothing but my pajamas and a robe, clutching a steaming cup of coffee that did nothing to mask the foul odor wafting up, mixing with my growing fury, because this wasn't just about a dirty car. It was war, declared by my HOA president, who'd been treating my property like her own personal territory for far too long. As a structural engineer with over 2 decades under my belt, I've always believed that every system has its vulnerabilities, even the iron-fisted hierarchy she hid behind, and boy, was I about to exploit them. You see, if your neighbor suddenly decided your driveway was theirs for the taking, what would you do? Dial up the cops, rally the HOA, or engineer something a bit more inventive? And tell me, where are you tuning in from right now? Drop it in the comments, because I guarantee your neighborhood dramas could top mine, making this tale seem like a gentle stroll. Let me rewind a bit and lay it all out. How this nightmare kicked off when I, at 52 years old, snagged this cozy 3-bedroom spot in Desert View Estates, a quiet suburb that promised serenity after my messy divorce, close enough to my teenage daughter Sophia for easy visits, with affordable HOA dues and that peaceful desert hush at dawn. The soft hiss of sprinklers and the faint rumble of morning traffic, a fresh start I desperately needed to piece my life back together. That tranquility shattered after just a couple of weeks. Desert View Estates being one of those uniform subdivisions thrown up in the late 90s, home to about 50 families, mostly working folks and retirees who minded their own business, but ruled by Eleanor Vance, or Ellie as everyone called her, the 59-year-old property broker who'd lorded over the HOA board for nearly a decade, settling into her prime corner lot back in 2004 and acting like it granted her some divine right. Her place boasted this expansive looped driveway that could fit half a dozen vehicles without issue, yet for reasons I couldn't fathom, she insisted on leaving her shiny black Mercedes SUV right in my spot, day after day. The first incident, I chalked it up to a simple mix-up, so I strolled over, knocked politely, and there she was in her fancy golf attire that screamed excess, flashing this insincere grin as she claimed, "Oh, it was just for a quick drop-off to the Millers next door, all in the name of association matters, you understand, right?" I could have shut it down right there, drawn a line in the sand, and told her to back off my land for good. But confrontation's never been my style. I'm the guy who solves issues with blueprints and logic, not raised voices, so I nodded along, muttered something like sure, no big deal. And that, folks, was the spark that ignited the inferno. What began as an occasional intrusion snowballed into a routine, excuses piling up like bad debts, urgent board stuff, won't be long, promise, and every sunrise I'd step out, ready for the commute, only to find that gleaming Mercedes barricading my garage, forcing me to crunch across the gravel, lugging bags an extra block, that irritating scrape underfoot becoming the anthem of my simmering rage. My approach to life has always been analytical, steady, dissecting problems layer by layer to craft equitable fixes, while Ellie embodied entitlement wrapped in cunning, wielding her title like a weapon to bend rules to her whim. Our differences clashing like oil and water. The elderly widow next door, Mrs. Garcia, 75 and a fixture since the homes were built, would peer out with this pitying gaze, and the Parkers, the young duo beside me, offered sympathetic nods but stayed silent, the whole block aware of the takeover, yet too intimidated by the HOA queen to intervene. Then came the snide digs. Her surprise upon learning my profession. "Oh, you're actually an engineer, not some groundskeeper," delivered with that condescending tone, slowing her words as if I needed subtitles. Comments laced with undertones about community standards and certain newcomers that twisted my gut. A month in, I was tardy to the office half a dozen times, garage door jammed shut by her vehicle. Sophia mortified to invite pals over with this intruder car squatting there, The neighborhood witnessing this blatant disregard for my rights, leaving me feeling trapped, helpless, but deep down. I knew engineers like me thrive on challenges, and if she thought she could steamroll me forever, she was sorely mistaken. The real escalation hit in week 4, pulling into my drive after a long shift to spot a glaring orange HOA citation slapped on my door, fluttering in the hot breeze as I peeled it open, citing unkempt landscaping and improper seasonal decor, specifics zeroing in on a modest patriotic banner in my flower bed deemed unapproved, plus a watering hose peeking out, fines tallying up to $500, my pulse racing as I stood there. This just days past Independence Day. Her labeling my banner a breach while ignoring the rest. So I did what I do best, collected intel, patrolling the streets with my camera, snapping shots of matching offenses everywhere, hoses strewn about, banners waving proudly, flower pots galore, the Parkers sporting the same banner, Mrs. Garcia with not one but 2 hoses in plain sight. Knocking on Mrs. Garcia's door, she welcomed me with warm tea, her aged hands cradling the cup as she whispered, "Son, she only targets those she dislikes." My digging uncovering a rotten pattern, every find resident a minority, a fresh divorcee, or someone who'd butted heads with her. Those same infractions rampant, but selectively enforced. In Arizona law, your driveway's sacred ground. Trespassing no joke even if it meets the road. So armed with that, I launched my defense, snapping pics of her Mercedes each time with a geo-timed app, building a log. Spreadsheets are my love language, tracking arrivals, departures, conditions, durations, amassing over a dozen entries in days. When my calm retort about recording trespass only fueling her fury, her complexion shifting shades like a storm cloud. Her payback? Parking tighter, inches from the door, engine idling with blaring tunes, turning nuisance into mastery. But then Mrs. Garcia showed up one dusk with a thick file. I've tracked her antics for ages. You're not her first victim, the Parkers joining in with their own snaps. Tales flooding in of arbitrary fees, biased yard rules, phantom tickets aimed at her foes. The air thickened with unease, like the oppressive summer scorch, everyone sensing the brewing showdown. My inner turmoil evolving from raw anger to calculated resolve, this transcending mere parking, delving into dominance, bias I hated acknowledging. But as an engineer, I plotted in my workshop, drafting barrier ideas, poring over regulations, unearthing a bylaw loophole on parking perks that shredded her claims, plus city codes on harassment via vehicles, Ellie assuming invincibility as board head, but she'd tangled with a codecracker. That fateful Monday, her boldness peaked when I returned to find her Mercedes wedged so snug against my garage that the opener groaned in vain. Metal straining futilely, her vanished, car secured, me locked out of my own space, a gaggle of kids gawking as I paced like an exile, hauling supplies of football field away while the block observed. My humiliation. Phoning the cops' non-urgent line, the responding officer Ramirez empathized but noted, civil dispute. Sir, no hydrant block or signage. Towing needs a day's heads up, and, get this, HOA not in our enclave. Ellie crafting her snare with her own clout. Parked curbside, fuming over groceries, it ignited my sleuthing fire. Uncovering her brokerage license demanded ethical bounds. Online gripes echoing boundary breaches, clients complaining of unwelcome visits, discomfort in their abodes. Key insight. Agents risk revocation for state-filed harassment beefs, professionalism. Trumping volunteer gigs. Yet I craved instant relief. Eyeing my irrigation setup for inspiration, tweaking the nozzle to douse her favored zone, timing it for dawn blasts when she typically invaded, masking it under fresh mulch and rocks. The whoosh of water blasting steel at daybreak became my symphony. 3 mornings later catching her mid-arrival, her yelp echoing as she bolted to my door. Soaked and seething, this is sabotage, I'll report you. Feigning shock. Oh dear, sprinkler glitch, been erratic. Maybe park elsewhere till I sort it. Her glare a mix of wrath and impotence. Proof elusive. Her riposte? Sideways blocking, sealing my whole drive if she couldn't claim her wet-free patch. Upping my game, I mounted a stealth cam with infrared footage over days riveting her. Scratching what she mistook for my ride. Actually a neighbor's sedan, Midnight patrols flashlight in hand, rifling my bins for dirt. Mrs. Garcia sharing clips of her sizing my fence, snapping decor. The Parkers broke silence post her blockade, admitting identical banner fines, threats looming, 3 more folks spilling enforcement woes, forging our underground network via texts and shared drives, cafe huddles swapping dossiers like spies. Meanwhile, I blueprint my masterstroke, a remote-controlled barrier arm, scouting permits revealing no HOA veto for code-compliant private tweaks. By pushing her buttons, I morphed this feud into a communal crisis, each irked resident of budding comrade. Weeks on, her nadir struck as I tinkered with timers, sirens wailing, Officer Ramirez. Pulling up perplexed, Ellie darting out scripted, Officer, he's menacing with tools. The creak of his belt betrayed skepticism eyeing my harmless gadget, her theatrics flopping as I proffered my dossier, snaps, logs, bylaws, statutes, detailing her trespass siege. His aside, consider protection order, this obsession's risky, and remember, reports etch patterns courts adore, even sans charges. Nights later, Cams nabbed her at wee hours with glue jamming my latch, then hammering my nozzle, $250 fix, but goldmine proof. I splurged on a $3,500 solar barrier, 14-foot reach, plate scanner, abstract logs, permits filed, trail ironclad. She summoned a crisis board session, decrying my divisive build, irony lost as only a trio attended, Mrs. Garcia, the Parkers, allies rallying. Her slideshow crumbling against my 52 trespass counts, $900 damages tally. Board vet Susan Hale piped up, this is bullying, we won't condone, my bylaw recite on elevated conduct standard ceiling. It, precedents of ousted leaders for similar sins, liability for positional abuse glaring. Next day, demands for her boot, the Parkers citing her drive incursions, Mrs. Garcia unveiling long-term bias logs, our shared file swelling with irrefutable data, transcending my gripe to authority rot. Barrier due Saturday, pals aiding setup as witnesses, tech bells and whistles for autoproof. Ellie cruised by obsessively, grilling folks on my project, her unraveling evident, climax looming. But then, tax digging for permits flagged her lot's underpaid dues, boundaries bloated to nibble my drive, saving her $1,600 yearly. Plans versus records screamed fraud, her claiming extra acreage from mine and others. Mrs. Garcia's vaulted binder chronicled it all, mirroring prior owner Rachel's ordeal, a solo mom hounded to undersell, Ellie's firm brokering both ends. Pattern, 5 exits post-clashes, vulnerable groups hit, her agency pocketing $200,000 commissions. Fraud felony, $60. 000 fines possible, plus fair housing breaches. Dynamics flipped. I held felony ammo that could torch her career, her aggression shielding a racket of fear-mongering for profit. Allies swelled with claim-standing kin, Mrs. Garcia's demo tracks bolstering, my charts mapping the scheme. Fraud spanned 1,500 square foot phantom land, $8,000 Dodge taxes. Garage morphed to ops center, wall charts linking. Dots, Mrs. Garcia Intel Queen, the Parkers tech aides. Hired rights lawyer Elena Torres, her verdict, prime discrimination suit with fraud cherry. Strategy, prosecutor tip, federal suit. License probe. Nugget, victim snag fees and housing wins. Barrier crate landed, specs dazzling, neighbors signing complaints, abuse web spanning kid noise gripes, decor bans, wallet draining. Mandates. Database cross-linked proof, financials fingering hubby firms no-bid gigs, $40,000 siphoned. Surveillance net cloud-fed, alerts buzzing. License dossier slammed ethics breaches. Media outreach to Channel 5's watchdog. Install prep, permits visible, observers invited, vid logs, role plays for calm amid chaos. Specs, 7-second cycle, sensors safe, contingencies set, cops on speed. Dial, lawyer ready, backups galore. Psych shift, from defender to striker, barrier emblem of resilience against tyranny. Friday Eve cams snared Ellie with cutters on my gear, foiled by chains and a yappy pup, pristine sabotage bid footage. Saturday dawned with her Mercedes sealing entry, her striding out authoritarian, inspecting for breaches, halting work. Cops summoned, Officer Ramirez. Mandating move, warning interference, her Hue cycle redux. Later, her inspector pal backfired. All kosher, surveyor affirming bounds. By afternoon, operational triumph, smooth test humdrawing. Cheers, app demo logging probes. Ellie tested at 3, sensors barring her, door pounding met with intercom facts on rights, cams rolling her frenzy. Agency calls dismissed post checks. Nugget. Private drives skip emergency mandates. Neighbors toasted, cookies from Mrs. Garcia, referrals requested. Harassment morphed. Dawn honks. Notes on cars, job complaints, dismissed filings. Logs amassed, strategy holding as she self-destructed. Week of peace, stress easing, Sophia's visits drama-free, engineering win profound. But storm brewed. Tuesday her with $2,500 envelope. App taping her shaky plea to settle quietly, bribe rebuffed, her stammer exposing rot. HOA books probe unearthed $25,000 ghost costs to Kin's firm, illegal self-deals risking liability. Smear ensued. Bogus profiles slinging lies on divorce, finances, Sophia, traced to her IP, defamation stacking. Council rally flopped, forged petition exposed. Bat-wielding approach triggered alarms. Neighbors dialing, cuffs clicking as she raged, order granted, board axing her. News blared HOA chief nabbed, my interview viral, gate icon of resistance, reform calls mounting. 6 barrier queries. Watch group born, values up 10%, 36 signatures ousting her. Audit clawed $30,000 back, fee cuts ensuing. Suits filed, license hearings, charges looming, attorney eyeing big damages. Gate flawless. App pivotal. Ellie's hubby split, clients fled, club booted. Town hall showdown packed 250, cams rolling. Her victim play crumbling against my slide torrent. Trespasses, fraud, discrimination, room. Boiling at $40,000 skim. Mrs. Garcia's chronicle, the Parker's tales, others' woes piled on. Reporters' query sparking her shove flea meltdown, footage damning. Officials launched probes. Assessor fraud hunt. App reveal of bribes, gasps echoing. $300,000 suit with fees. Board reformed. Oversight, policies, me elected. Coverage ballooned. Gate in mags. Plans shared, makers courting. Settlement to fund defense org, aiding 15 families, scholarships for planners. 8 months on, Ellie fled post-sale, probation, restitution, license gone, divorce asset hit, order active. Her a training caution. Gate zero breaches, app enhanced, crime down 35%, festival funding advocacy, reform bill citing us. Dating Isabella, Mrs. Garcia's girl, Sophia Bond ironclad, friendships. Deep. Impacts, precedents set, trainings mandated, software inspired. Mornings serene, app clicks affirming victory, community united proving everyday folks topple despots with smarts and solidarity. Reflecting back on those endless nights in the garage, surrounded by stacks of printouts and glowing screens, the weight of injustice pressing down like the unrelenting desert sun. I can still feel the knot in my stomach from the early days, the helplessness that morphed into determination, each documented trespass not just a log entry, but a brick in the wall of resistance I was building, brick by brick, against a system rigged by one woman's greed and prejudice. And it wasn't just about reclaiming my driveway anymore. It was about restoring dignity to every family sheet. Trampled, the single parents pushed out, the minorities sidelined, the voices silenced under her regime of selective terror. Sophia's pride in her dad's stand, her hugs tighter now. Her stories to friends laced with awe, healed fractures from the divorce I never thought could mend so fully, turning our home from a battleground into a sanctuary where laughter echoed freely again. No shadow of intrusion looming. The community's rebirth felt like a phoenix rising from the ashes of fear, block parties replacing whispered complaints, shared meals under starry skies where neighbors swapped tales not of woes but of triumphs, the barrier gate standing sentinel not as a divider but as a reminder of unity forged in adversity, its quiet hum a lullaby of security. Even now, as I mentor young engineers on practical problem-solving, weaving in lessons from this saga, emphasizing how data and persistence can dismantle empires of abuse, I see ripples extending far beyond. Tucson, emails from strangers nationwide, sharing how my blueprints empowered their own fights, turning personal vendettas into waves of reform, and in quiet moments, sipping coffee at dawn. Watching the sun paint the horizon in golds and pinks, I ponder the fragility of power, how one engineer's resolve cracked open a web of corruption, freeing a neighborhood from chains it didn't even fully recognize. The tragedy of unchecked authority laid bare, the unjust hierarchies that crumble when exposed to light, and the enduring love for family that fueled every step. Every late-night strategy session, every calculated counterstrike, proving that revenge, when just and methodical, isn't vengeance but restoration, a balancing of scales long tipped against the vulnerable. The scholarships we've funded now nurture minds tackling urban equity, their projects inspired by real-world battles like mine, ensuring future communities are designed with fairness at their core, barriers not just physical but systemic dismantled before they take root. And as Isabella and I plan our future, her gentle encouragement echoing Mrs. Garcia's wisdom, the circle of support completes itself, a testament to how standing firm against bullies weaves stronger bonds, turning isolated struggles into collective victories that echo through generations. The desert winds carrying whispers of change far and wide. But here's where I pause and wonder, was my engineered revenge truly just, or did it cross into overkill, pushing the boundaries of justice versus vengeance? And what about the ethics of turning the tables so thoroughly on someone who wielded power so wrongly? Tell me in the comments, would you have gone as far or drawn the line sooner? And how do we balance personal rights with community harmony without becoming the bully we fought?